we are live for episode 21 of Lowering the Barrier. Hello, everybody. It's been quite a while. 3 months, which, my bad. We have a 4-month-old baby now, and so, for my parents out there, even my non parents, I think everybody can kind of understand. Um, Having a newborn is there's definitely some priorities that need to be deprioritized for a little while. And if whether you're watching this on video or you're listening to this, if you think, does this sound a little different? Am I going crazy? You're not going crazy. It does sound a little different. We had a little fiasco with the microphone situation. I spent like $500, maybe more, on these nice mics, these nice stands, headphones, this like box equipment thing. And it turns out it doesn't work with my computer. Like my PC, it only works with my Mac. Anyway, so I'm going to get a better mic after this one. Sorry if the audio quality is not up to par, up to your listening standards, but I'm going to invest in one that does work for my PC. And if you notice, the background has changed as well. Maddie and I tried to do a podcast episode, but Milo was like waking up a bunch. It was like in nap time, and so it's just pretty hard. So it's just going to be me going solo for a little while, and I will. I have a bunch of guests planned. Yeah, but I'm going to try to make this a more regular thing. We're working on the blog. We're working on the podcast. Not that you guys are really asking for, hey, what's going on in your business? Sorry, I'm just looking at myself as I'm recording. If you're not on video, it's so silly. I'm like holding this mic up because I don't have this mic. I don't have like a nice mic stand for this cheap mic that I had in the back of my closet. It just looks a little silly. But if I move it too far away from my mouth, you won't be able to hear me very well. It would sound like this. I'm going to do like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And so I'm sure there you could tell, like, yeah, that's not going to work. So I got to hold it up close. Anyway. Today we were talking about fiber. I think other macronutrients have gotten their time in the limelight, and fiber, calling it a macronutrient, I guess that's probably pretty debatable. I guess we should probably file it under micronutrient. Really, a differentiation there is it's just a nutrient, macro or micro, that we consume a lot or a little of, and macronutrient, like protein might get 100, 150 grams, maybe more, maybe less. Carbs might get, depends, but anywhere from 0 to hundreds of grams. And fat's pretty similar. We need fats to survive, but could get down as low as like 30 grams, maybe a little bit less, but all the way up to maybe 100 grams or even more. Anyway, the fiber, we're really shooting for somewhere in that 25 to 35 gram mark. Not to get ahead of myself too much, but a national consumption survey showed only about 5% of the population meets fiber recommendations. That's not enough. That's not enough. And I'm sure, most of you are health-seeking individuals. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. Unless you just, I guess like the sound of my voice or something. Which I guess would be feasible. Sure. Very kind of you. But I would say most of you are probably health-seeking individuals, and therefore you are probably beating 95% of the population in terms of fiber targets, fiber intake. All right, so today we're going to be talking about what is fiber, why is it important, potential signs you may need more fiber, what foods have it, how much should you have. We'll talk about some classifications of fiber, some I don't necessarily want to call them hacks to get more fiber, but just some ways that you can increase your fiber intake. Some specifics around cholesterol and blood sugar and weight management. We'll talk about really briefly about some fiber supplements. Are they worth it or not? And then we'll give some practical tips, and then we'll wrap it up. Now, this was a long outline, which would normally mean that this would be a long episode. But since I'm going through these solo, I don't think they'll be as long as they used to be. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. I'm not sure. I guess that's up to the individual. Okay, before we get into the first topic, which is what is fiber, I need to do my standard plugs. Feel free to skip through this if you don't want to listen. Okay, If you're interested in trying out a training program for less than $1 a day, check out the A Team. It is where I host workouts, where I show off, or where I program workouts for people. The program is updated every 6 weeks. There is a home and a gym program for the same price. You get it for one price of $27 a month with a 7-day free trial. If you are looking for something that's more fitness and nutrition, check out Forward Forever. The next cycle registration opens up December 8th, 2024. So if you're listening to this after that, we open up registration every 6 weeks, so just hop in the next one. And I have finally opened up my one-on-one coaching program, The Change Project. So I'm working through the waitlist right now. I've had the waitlist open for the last 9 months or so, and so I'm working through that. And if you would like to work with me one-on-one, check that out. It's similar to one-on-one I've done in the past, where you get a custom training program, tailored nutrition targets, habits, weekly check-ins, monthly calls, but with the added component of structured education, so 12 weeks of education. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check all that out on my website. We just redid my website homepage and testimonials page, so maybe check it out. And if you enjoy this episode, please give it, or the podcast in general, please give it a 5-star rating. And maybe if you want, you can screenshot and share on your Instagram story and tag me and be like, hey, the Instagram is back, or the Instagram, did I say the Instagram is, the podcast is back. That would be great, because I think maybe taking a 3-month hiatus may be dropping my numbers, but we won't know until we know. But I'm going to get back into the swing of this and try to make it a little bit easier on myself, because man, this outline for fiber today took hours to go through, thinking about what you need to know, what you don't need to know, writing everything. Without further ado, let's get into it with what is fiber. So fiber is technically classified as a carbohydrate. If you look at any nutrition label, you will see fiber underneath the carbohydrates. However, it is an indigestible complex carbohydrate. And so, unlike other carbohydrates that you may eat, fiber cannot be digested by the human body, and instead our gut microbiome will digest it for us. And this is really important because it helps maintain regular bowel movements, fiber does. Some types will help bulk up your stool. Some others will bind to compounds like cholesterol, which can help lower cholesterol, and we'll talk about how that works. It's actually pretty cool. Pretty nerdy, but pretty cool. It feeds your gut microbiome, and it helps keep us full, which is great for weight management, which I think is the most common allure to eating more fiber is, I guess most people in America are overweight or obese. And so, coming at it from, hey, this will help you lose weight because of the impact on satiety, the positive benefit to satiety. I think that's a really, easy way to look at it that can make it a little bit more tangible for people, rather than being like, oh, it'll help your cholesterol, which, cholesterol is really, really important for us. But people don't usually, in my experience, people don't typically care about cholesterol until they need to care. They have a health scare or something like that, or they see, maybe a blood test comes back and their LDL cholesterol is a little bit higher than they want it to be. And then they're like, okay, well, what do I got to do? And fiber will help with that too. But, a lot of people immediately, they can jump on a scale, or they can feel, not so good in their clothes, and they know, maybe I need to lose a little bit of weight. So fiber can help with that. So here are some signs that you may need more fiber. First, are you constipated? If so, you might need more fiber. Second, are you hungry shortly after eating? If so, you may need more fiber. Do you have high LDL cholesterol? If so, you already know what I'm about to say. You may need more fiber. And fourth and finally, do you have difficulty losing weight? Then yeah, I would be checking your fiber intake. Are you getting enough fruits and veggies, legumes, whole grains, things like this? I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, because the next section is what foods have it. And I almost want you to already know this answer, just generally speaking. You don't have to be like, oh, well, raspberries and blueberries and blackberries. Let's go broader. Plants. Plants have fiber. Maybe you've heard of the Super Six. Probably not. You might be thinking, is that like the DC comic universe version of the Avengers, the Super Six. It sounds like it, right? It is not. It is. I'm trying to make myself laugh, trying to make this enjoyable because it's just me, but it's like it's like crazy trying to tell jokes. I think Bo Burnham had a thing about that. It was like, I want you to tell a joke when nobody's there to laugh. That's actually how I feel. If anybody in the podcast audience out there is a Bo Burnham fan. Anyway, okay, so the Super Six. We got whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, legumes, and then herbs and spices. So those 6 categories are all high fiber foods typically. And if we can consistently consume foods from all 6 of those groups, we are in a great spot for hitting our daily fiber target, but we're also giving our gut microbiome a lot of diversity. And diversity is important because our gut contains trillions of bacteria and they thrive on different sources. They eat different sources of fiber that we provide it. And so fiber also has different properties and classifications and can do different things. And so, if you were to get, I was talking to somebody the other day on a consultation call that, by the way, I'm offering paid consultation calls now. So if you're curious, this is not supposed to be a sales pitch. But yeah. So I was talking to somebody on a sales call and they said, yeah, they get their pretty good fiber, 25, 35 grams. And it's always important that we ask, where's that coming from? Because if that's coming from a whole variety, of things, it's like, okay, you're doing great. Let's just check that box off. But in this case, it was coming from Mission carb wraps, low carb wraps. I'm sure you are familiar. Those low carb tortillas that are very high in fiber. I mean, you could get 25, 35 grams just from eating 2 or 3 of those pretty easily. However, it's not, that's just one type of fiber. And we're going to talk about some classifications of fiber next. And you'll kind of see why getting some diversity is important. But until you get to that point in the next 30 to 60 seconds, you just got to take my word for it. So how much should you have every day? How much fiber? A good rule of thumb is for every 1,000 calories, we should have about 14 grams of fiber. And more is fine, but if you notice, you need to increase your fiber significantly in order to achieve that goal. Like let's say you're eating 4 grams per day right now and you want to get it to 30 grams. I would do it slowly, do it over time in order to reduce the risk of potential GI distress. It's, going from 5 to 30 grams might make you feel a little bit bloated. It might make you feel like, you got to go order that bidet that's been sitting in your Amazon wish list for a little while. While we're on the topic of fiber, I think I'm sure if you've been listening to this podcast a while, you know that I recommend bidets. Again, not to really harp on this too much, but if you got shit on your arm, if you got literal feces on your arm, would you just wipe it off with a paper towel or a napkin and be like, nah, good enough? No, no, you wouldn't do that. I'd hope you wouldn't do that. I think at very least you'd splash, at very least you'd splash some water in it. That'd be bare minimum, right? So why are we treating, other areas of our body any differently? I mean, I'd venture to say most of you'd probably be scrubbing, with soap and water, scrubbing. So, maybe get a bidet. Takes 5 minutes to set up. I actually thought about reaching out to a bidet company and seeing if I get sponsored because I'm so passionate about bidets. But I even have a travel bidet. It's like a little, almost like a flexible water bottle kind of thing. Anyway, if you're curious, just shoot me an Instagram DM. I can send you a link. Okay, so let's let's talk about 3 classifications. Please screenshot that section and be like, just screenshot it, throw it on your Instagram story and be like, just ordered a bidet because of you. Thank you, Alex. Tag me in it so I can share it if anybody does that. Okay, let's talk about classifications of fiber. This is going to get a little bit nerdy, but just hang with me here. So in the past, fiber classifications have really broken down into either soluble or insoluble. And that's a decent classification system, but we can go further than that. And we may want to go further than that. And let me just say, with everything I'm about to say, you don't need to think about this too much. You don't need to be, in the grocery store Googling, sitting in front of the oatmeal and Googling, is this soluble? Is this insoluble? What's the viscosity like? What's the fermentability? You don't need to worry about this. All you need to do is increase the diversity. I am simply giving you this information so that you understand that it's important to get a variety of sources so that you can see that different fiber types will do different things. Excuse me. Okay, so first, like I said, solubility. And solubility just means whether it dissolves in water. So when the fiber is introduced to water, does it dissolve or does it not dissolve? Okay, so soluble fiber does dissolve in water. And this type of fiber will help to bind to bile or cholesterol. It'll slow, which helps with cholesterol, I should say. And let me just, it'll bind to bile, which helps with cholesterol. I will talk about that in depth in like 5 minutes or so because we're moving pretty fast here. It'll slow blood sugar release into the bloodstream. It helps with satiety and also can help with slowing diarrhea and constipation depending on the viscosity, which we'll talk about next. Soluble fiber is responsible for the most amount of health benefits. So if you can increase the amount of soluble fiber you have, that would be a good idea. So insoluble fiber does not dissolve in water. It adds bulk to the stool, can help with constipation as it helps speed up your intestinal transit, or the speed that things move along in your GI. Next, the second classification is viscosity, and this is the fluidity or thickening ability. So viscous is just like the texture that fiber will produce when mixed with liquid. And so this is kind of like a subcategorization of soluble fiber, but it's still, relatively important. And if it's more viscous, it'll create more of a gel-like consistency when mixed with water. And then finally, we have fermentability. And this is like, is it digested? I'm using like air quotes here, that digested by our gut bacteria. So fiber feeds microbes in the gut, and fermentable fibers are readily fermented or used as a fuel source for microbes in our gut. And poorly fermented fibers don't do that. Resistant starches are an example of a highly fermentable fiber, which is awesome for our gut bacteria. And you may be like, wait, hold on, resistant starch? We haven't talked about that yet. What the heck is that? I never heard of that. Maybe you have. Either way, let's cover it. Resistant starch. So, if I told you that if you cooked something like rice, for example, if you cook rice and then you refrigerate it and then you warm up those leftovers, is that rice changed? It is indeed. You have increased the fiber content by cooling it. So resistant starch forms during the cooling process as some of the digestible starches are converted into a structure that resists digestion. This process is called retrogradation. So, foods that include this, experience this, I should say, include carbs. Things like potatoes, rice, pasta, bread, corn, legumes, and oats. So those overnight oats, if you refrigerate them, you are increasing the fiber content of an already high fiber content food. Oatmeal is great, pretty high in soluble fiber, so that would be one that I would start incorporating if I'm you. And don't feel like you need to, upon hearing this, don't feel like you need to be that person who's like, honey, I just finished making dinner and we're having rice and, among other things. But we need to, Alex said, we need to increase our resistant starch. So I'm going to cool this for the next 3 hours, maybe even overnight, and we'll eat tomorrow. We're not going to be eating dinner tonight. I'm sorry. Here's a glass of water. Yeah, don't do that. It's more of think of it as a bonus, think of it as a extra credit to eating leftovers. This should inspire you to eat leftovers. And just, you don't need to eat it cold. Reheating it, after refrigerating, after cooking, then refrigerating, reheating does not break down the resistant starch that is formed during cooling. So you don't need to eat cold rice. You don't need to eat cold potatoes. Obviously, with like overnight oats, some people do prefer to eat that cold, which do your thing, but just know that it doesn't break down the resistant starch that formed during the retrogradation process. Okay, earlier in this episode, I talked about the impact of fiber on weight management. This is pretty straightforward. Just increase your fiber because foods that are high in fiber are typically more filling. I mean, it's that straightforward. So, one easy way to do this, I know I'm big on tracking. Like, I've tracked so many days of the last like 5 years. Like, I'd probably say 98% of days of the last 5 years. Um, but I don't think tracking is just a tool, and I don't think necessarily it's the right tool or the best tool for everybody in every situation. And so, increasing your fiber, without even necessarily tracking it, but increasing your fiber can be a really easy way to help lose weight or manage your weight. Kind of like sit at weight maintenance. Um, Either way, yeah, fiber can really help with that. It also just improves your health. So yeah, what I would do is I'd consider adding a fruit or veggie at every meal. And if you're already doing that, kudos to you. Maybe double your portion size. So instead of like a quarter cup of blueberries at breakfast, maybe do a half cup. Maybe go crazy. Do a full cup. Those those frozen mixed bags of both berries and or like fruits or veggies. Like for the veggies, oh my god, phenomenal stir fry. And then for the fruits, like you could just snack on those. So many people feel like you need to, you need to. Sorry, my headphones just went out, but it looks like the mic's still going, so we're good. So many people feel like you need to just get fresh fruits, and that's not necessarily the case. Also, don't feel like you need to buy organic. Maybe I'll do an episode on organic food at some point, but I've made a number of Instagram posts on it. Dr. Andrea Love has made a good amount of content on organic food. It's a lot more expensive without necessarily being more healthy or anything like that. So don't feel like you need to buy organic food. Okay, next, let's talk about blood sugar. So fiber slows the absorption of sugars, carbohydrates, which helps to control blood sugar levels. Pretty straightforward. Now, blood sugar levels and insulin, they've been heavily fear-mongered. Like, really. And there's like a few accounts specifically that they talk about blood sugar spikes and insulin. And this is, please do not overthink this. Unless you're diabetic, it's not something to worry about. But if you are diabetic, then including fiber in your meals can help blunt that acute blood sugar increase. Might make your blood glucose levels a little bit easier to manage potentially. Next, we'll talk about cholesterol. So, why does cholesterol matter? You might be familiar with cholesterol, but not really sure like what it does. Maybe it's something with the heart and stuff like that, and you'd be right. So, high total cholesterol and high LDL cholesterol are both risk factors for cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes, artery disease, high blood pressure. Not the good stuff. Like we don't want that. We don't want high cholesterol or high LDL cholesterol, high total cholesterol or high LDL. And how does fiber help? Okay, so bile is necessary for digesting fat. Bile is made of cholesterol. Fiber will bind to that bile, and we excrete it, soluble fiber specifically, or mostly. Fiber binds to that bile, and we excrete it, and then our liver will take cholesterol out of our bloodstream to make more bile. And so this will bring down your LDL cholesterol levels. So if you have high LDL cholesterol, I mean, it's not like this huge thing. I think I saw one study a few days ago when I was prepping this outline that said like maybe like a 5% or like a 5 point decrease, maybe even up to 10% decrease in LDL cholesterol. So if your LDL cholesterol is like, we want it to be under 100 maybe, depending on the person, but let's just use 100 as a decent, number. If we wanted our LDL to be, or if it's like 120, to get it under 100, like, I mean, fiber is one of those things that might help a little bit, but there might be more things you have to do in addition to that. So just know that it's not like this insane fix-all type thing, but it's one thing that you should probably be doing, increasing your fiber for a multitude of reasons. All right, with everything I've said so far, we're getting close to the end. With everything I've said so far, I want you to know, listener, that the carnivore diet, where you eat only animal products, could be one of, if not the dumbest dietary pattern possible. Fiber is so beneficial for us. I mean, it increases your lifespan, like verifiably. And so if we totally remove fiber from our diet, we are doing ourselves a massive disservice. So if you know anybody who's running the carnivore diet, or God forbid, you listening to this are running the carnivore diet, please, I beg you, just go eat like one plant, just every once in a while. For people who have the contract or the contrast, the some people will say, "Oh, I started eating the carnivore diet and I felt better," and that may be true. Maybe because what this person is doing is maybe they are reducing their calorie intake. Maybe they are reducing foods that they had intolerances to. They're, you know, there could be a multitude of reasons, but I'm trying to think of like, hey, I saw a spider in my house, so I decided to, and I was really scared, so decided to burn down my house. It's like, did you solve the spider problem? Yes. Did you need to burn down your house? No. There are probably easier ways to go about it, to take care of that spider. And so it's kind of, that's sort of similar to this dietary approach. It's just insane. It's a psychotic approach. Please do not do the carnivore diet. Okay, fiber supplements. So there are three that really come to mind. I mean, there are more obviously, but there are three that like are popular and come to mind. So greens powders first. This is the most popular one and probably out there. They're super overpriced. They are so wickedly overpriced. What is it? AG1 is $80, for a month, for a month's supply. And I talked in depth about supplements that I do and don't recommend in which episode was it? 16 was my top five supplements, and then episode 17 was my worst five supplements. And greens powder is actually basically at the top of the list for worst supplements. I think I said they weren't in order, and that's true. They weren't in perfect order, but man, if I had to think about some supplements that just are not worth the money, I guess the upside to greens powder is that they're not dangerous. Like some fat burners can be so high in caffeine that they could be potentially dangerous for somebody. But greens powders, yeah, a lot of them have proprietary blends, which means that yes, they do have to release what ingredients are in there, but they don't need to increase or include the dosages. And so a lot of the dosages that they may include are not clinically relevant, meaning they won't reach you know how I always say like the dose makes the poison? Well, the dose makes the benefit as well. And so with a lot of these greens powders, they're just not going to be worth your money because they're not going to be doing a lot of what they say. Could you get a little bit of fiber from them? Sure, yeah. But you could also just go get a frozen veggie pack or berry pack for a few bucks, and it'll be far superior and cheaper. All right, next we have psyllium husk. Actually, really solid as far as supplements go. It's high in soluble viscous fiber. So that's really the good stuff. So if you wanted to supplement, like, look, I'm a firm believer that in a lot of cases, try to get most of your dietary makeup from whole foods, and then you can add in supplements as needed. And so if somebody was like, "Hey, I'm getting 35 grams, and all 35 grams is from psyllium husk," I'd be like, "Wow, oh my gosh, okay, that's interesting." Um, Maybe you have a berry or an apple or a banana or broccoli every once in a while. But yeah, if you want to supplement for a little bit more, then psyllium husk is actually pretty good. And Metamucil is kind of like a brand name fiber supplement that you probably have either heard of or seen. And this contains mostly psyllium husk. They just add some like flavoring to it to make it taste a little bit better. So that would be fine to consume as well. Metamucil, yeah. Okay, we're about to wrap it up. Let's hit some practical tips to increase your quantity and diversity. So here's some ideas. Get out the pen and paper. So first, add seeds, nuts, herbs, and spices to foods you're already eating, like eggs, yogurt, toast, smoothies, etc. A frequent recommendation of mine is if somebody's drinking smoothies, I just tell them to add some chia seeds. Chia seeds are high in alpha linoleic acid, which can be converted semi-inefficient, pretty inefficiently, but still can be converted to EPA and DHA, which those are why people take like fish oil is for the EPA and DHA. Very important for our health. So chia seeds, pretty high in that ALA. So, could be worth taking a flyer on. Might be a good idea. Plus, just helps increase your fiber intake and makes those smoothies a little bit more satiating. Next, focus on a plant-heavy diet. I don't think this one's too groundbreaking here, but maybe try out. Oh, I was talking to somebody who had a what did she call it? I think it was like a loaded bean salad or heavy bean salad. It was something like that. And basically, it's just like a salad made of primarily beans. Beans are phenomenal for you. So if you could try to pump in some, just try to make more of your diet based around plants, and you'd be going a really long way. Next is create a tradition where maybe you make a new vegetable side dish one day of the week. Maybe Sunday, Saturday night, Sunday morning, you're like, hey, family, what do you guys think about trying out grilled asparagus this week? And your family either says yay or nay, and then you keep trying, or you force them to try it anyway because we all got to eat more plants. Next, maybe find a prepackaged fiber option at the grocery store for busy days, like that those stir fry packs. Those are phenomenal. Throw them in with some either chicken, shrimp, or steak or something like that, and you got yourself a really good meal. Maybe some rice in there too, some cooled rice, right, for the resistant starch. Next, I don't want to like shit talk low carb tortillas because they're totally fine. I just don't want somebody getting 100% of their fiber from them. But maybe making swaps to things like the low carb tortillas or like the air popped popcorn. Air popped popcorn has a slightly higher fiber content than the microwave popcorn. And then the low carb tortillas, yeah, I mean, one, they are high in fiber, but two, they can really start saving calories. I mean, really. So if you're on a fat loss phase, that'd be maybe a good idea to add those in. Next, pay attention to what fruits and veggies are in season for the time of year when trying new things. Because we want the best, If we're trying a new thing, we want to enjoy it. So maybe just Google like fruits and veggies in season, Yeah. Next, peruse your grocery store or a farmer's market and just be inquisitive. I know this sounds a little silly, but maybe next time you're going to the Walmart or the Meijer for my Midwest folk, or the whatever grocery store you have near you. I don't know. I don't know the grocery store chains, but yeah, maybe just peruse and I don't know, be inquisitive. Say, I never tried this before. Maybe I try this once and see what it's like. Next, instead of topping yogurt, granola, or oatmeal with one type of berry, just do a variety. I mean, this can help with the diversity. So instead of maybe just throwing some blueberries on top, maybe throw some blueberries, some raspberries, some blackberries, some strawberries. I don't know. Could be a good idea. Next, and this is actually a game changer. I swear, I live by this tip for people. Keep prepped fruits and veggies at eye level in your refrigerator for easy snacks, and do it in a glass or see-through container. I prefer glass, just really nice and see-through. Throw it at eye level. When you open the fridge, all of us do it. When we open the fridge and we're just kind of like a little hungry, we're looking for a snack, if your eyes go directly to the berries, or some people like to snack on bell peppers, whatever, if your eyes go right to there, you're just going to grab a handful. So that can be really helpful. And then finally, the resistant starch that we talked about. So cooking a carb like pasta, rice, potatoes, etc., then refrigerate and eat for leftovers. And don't feel like you can still eat the stuff that you just cooked, and then just make a double batch or triple batch or something and leave the rest for leftovers, whatever you don't eat. All right, some final tips. When you increase your fiber, don't go 0 to 100 like I talked about earlier. Maybe build it up over time. So if you're at 5 grams right now, maybe increase to 10 grams next week, and the next week 15 grams, so on and so forth. Next, drink lots of water. Fiber absorbs water, so it's just it'd be a good idea to increase your fiber, or increase your water when you're increasing your fiber. Next, like we've talked about, and I've really, jammed this in here, diversify your sources. Don't let your fiber come 100% from one place. It's not the end of the world if you do. Better that you're getting some fiber, but it's gonna be more beneficial if you do diversify those sources. And then finally, greater than or equal to 1 gram of fiber per 10 grams of carbs, that's a solid fiber source. So if you're looking at, maybe it's a granola bar or, oatmeal or something, and you're looking at the fiber versus the total carbs, if the total carbs, for example, is 40 grams and the fiber is 3 grams, maybe not the best fiber source. But if the total carbs are 40 grams, but then the fiber is 5, 6, 7 plus grams of fiber, then that would be a pretty solid fiber source. It'd be decent. Okay, thank you for sticking with me on, coming back after this 3 month hiatus. I really genuinely appreciate it. I am going to get a better microphone and situation, but I was tired of putting this off because I've been getting a lot of Instagram messages of like, when's the podcast coming back? And that really means a lot. That's very, very kind for all of you to want to listen to me ramble for 35 minutes. I hope all of you were okay with the solo episode. There's not as much conversation going back and forth. I do have ADHD, so honestly, I hope that kind of helps things, keep it entertaining. Hopefully, my scatterbrained thoughts are enjoyable and entertaining and not, I don't know, distracting. But yeah, just really genuinely, thank you for sticking with this. Thank you for your patience as, Milo has entered our world and made us, feel like the two luckiest people on planet Earth. And he started laughing, so that's just like so cute. And yeah, that's everything. Once again, check out the A Team, check out Forward Forever, check out the Change Project. And if you're happy the podcast is back, maybe just shoot me a DM and be like, hey, thanks for bringing it back. Because I'm a human just like you guys. And this was a good bit of work trying to bring it back and trying to figure out not having Maddie here and trying to figure out where am I going to record now and all that. It doesn't, this stuff doesn't matter. But yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Take care.